This episode of Bend the Knee is brought to you by Sir David the Huntsman, whose words are, "You make me quiver."
Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra, the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we're into chapter 17, Bran of Game of Thrones, and we are into
Aegon the Third.
Aegon the Third, yeah, on our World of Ice and Fire. So,
yeah.
real quick, I'd like to mention up front, every Friday we do a follow-up Friday, so if you have any questions about this week's show, the chapters, or just theories in general, please send your ravens to btkcast@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. Let's go ahead and head on over to the small council. Sir Ezra, any news going on in the world? I don't. None that I read. I mean, I guess there was a wedding.
There was a wedding of some sort. I don't know. Yeah,
some sort. Yeah. Kit Harington and Rose Leslie, I believe that is her last name. She's the woman that plays Ygritte.
Right.
They got married this past day, as most everyone. I think the show is finishing up filming. We saw that the actor who plays Jaime Lannister had mentioned he had filmed his final scene.
Right. Yep.
And so I guess they wanted to make sure that all things went well. So Game of Thrones was done being filmed, because we know how weddings go with Game of Thrones.
Yeah, they don't typically go well. So
yeah, typically go well. I didn't see. I read not a blog. I didn't see Gur didn't tweet anything about it.
Yeah.
You and I were mentioning. I was saying I thought it would have been really great if Gur had at least congratulated them on Twitter.
Sure.
And been like, guys, would have loved to come, but we all know my track record with weddings.
Right. Yeah, it probably should not attend.
Yeah, it probably should not attend. It is funny. There's a lot of pictures, and a lot of the actors are there. Like the guy who plays Davos, and like Sam and Gendry, and there's a picture of I don't know his name, the guy who plays Gendry with Emilia Clarke, Daenerys Targaryen, and they're just walking, talking, and people online are tweeting like, "Oh, Gendry, like Daenerys are gonna have
something's up."
Oh my gosh, like
you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
I mean,
could have a scene together.
There could have been some secrets shared there at the wedding.
Could be.
Could have pulled like a.
What do we call this one? So you got the red wedding, you got the purple wedding.
Yeah, I don't know. This was between Jon Snow and Ygritte, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
The northern wedding, grand northern wedding.
The grand northern wedding.
There you go.
Yeah, that's good. That works.
Yeah, but it's cool that those two actually got married. In real life, especially when you feel terrible when Ygritte dies.
I know.
Let's just hope it's better than the Twilight wedding. Kristen Stewart, Robert Pattinson.
Oh,
that didn't end well.
That did not end well. Yeah,
I have a little more faith in Kit Harington here.
Yeah,
so.
Me too.
So okay, all right. Well, I don't believe there's any other show news or anything else.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything myself. I think the only cool piece we had was the whole. We might as well just mention again, if you had forgotten, the Age of Heroes. Right. Piece.
Oh yeah, we talked about that last week. Yeah,
I know we did. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to say it again. Like it's cool. I'm excited for it.
Cool.
So
yeah, I don't know. There has been no more rumors on it yet, but as it comes, we'll be obviously talking about it a lot. And as we near Fire and Blood, I'm sure we'll slowly get some more stuff on it.
Well, and I was hoping too. We're gonna get a lot more stuff, more so for the the next season of Game of Thrones. But if anyone does feel compelled to send us something about the Age of Heroes and the Seven Kingdoms, and what it might be like, that'd be cool. We could definitely do something on Follow Up Friday. So
yeah, and I guess I guess I have something. So we have gotten some ravens. People have asked us, where do we get our histories from? Like, what are some of the companion books? What are some of the other things you can go to? So you have the main series, which there's actually only 5 books, right? You have a Game of Thrones, Clash of Kings, Storm of Swords, Feast of Crows, and A Dance with Dragons. That's like the main canon books.
Right.
Then we also use, obviously, the World of Ice and Fire book.
Right.
Which I think you can get on Amazon for like $20 hardcover.
Yeah.
The audiobook is also really good. I recommend that. Then you have the Dunk and Egg series. So that is actually kind of confusing. So there's like graphic novels of those. There's also graphic novels of the main series. But what I recommend getting is the Night of Seven Kingdoms. And it has 3 of the Dunk and Egg books, which is actually all that has been written.
Right.
Those are the only 3 that have been written. There are plans for more, but as we've seen with Winds of Winter, obviously those are on hold. I believe I did read one. I did read a thread back a couple years ago where Gurr says, "Well, I'll go back to Dunk and Egg once I finish Winds of Winter." So
it'll be a while.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
while.
Yeah, but they are really good. I think we had Sir Robert of Newcastle was mentioning that he had started reading them, right?
Yeah, I think he read I think he read all 3.
Yeah,
in one day, plowed through them. He said he. I think he
they're
said
short.
I
they're short.
think he said he liked the Mystery Knight the best.
Yeah, that's one. That one's a good one.
And again, on those, I really I cannot recommend the audiobook enough.
Yeah.
It's read by Harry Lloyd, who plays Viserys Targaryen, and he just does an excellent job of narrating Sir Duncan the Tall.
Yeah.
And it's great.
It's really good. And also to give you some more, where is that at, right, in this whole world of, Game of Thrones world, right? It's after Aegon the Fourth and before Aegon the Fifth. Yeah. So it kind of tells you.
Yeah. By the third one, I don't even think Maekar has become king.
No. Yeah.
Dunk or Egg's dad.
Right. So really, it is the story. I don't want to. I don't think it's really a spoiler, but I mean, well, maybe I won't say it. But one of the characters in there becomes king. Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. So I was worried about. I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's pretty obvious, but some people would be like, well, "You spoiled it for me." Oh,
well,
no,
we're not even there yet in the books.
No,
like
I know.
It's like the books. Yeah. So I mean, it's pretty cool. There's 3 books in that. There is the Hedge Knight, which is how Sir Duncan the Tall becomes a knight.
Yep.
He fights in the tourney of Ashford Meadow, which is really cool. I was about to almost said Pennytree, but it's not.
Yes, Sir Arlen of Pennytree.
Sir Arlen of Pennytree
was
his
the knight who knighted him, right? He was squire for him.
Then you have the Sworn Sword, which is also, it's just, they're all really cool because they all just give you like tiny little like scuffles between like tiny houses and things like that. But
was that Eustace Osgrey?
Yeah, that's Eustace Osgrey,
right? And the Red Widow,
Lady Weber, and it's you're talking about 2 lords. I use that in parentheses. They're so small. I mean, Eustace Osgrey, the Checky Lion,
right?
He's down in the Reach, and he's got, literally like 3 farmers. Like that's
he's got nothing.
Yeah, that's his.
He used to have a bigger keep.
Yeah, he used to have a bigger keep. And there's kind of a dispute over the river, and there's like a dam, and it's pretty cool. And then you get to the Mystery Knight, which is actually really cool. That one, there's definitely a lot more weight. The third one.
Is it the second Blackfire Rebellion, though?
The third,
is
I believe.
Because remember one, it's nothing. It's not even a rebellion. So it might be the second one, actually.
Maybe it is the second. Yeah. The second Blackfire Rebellion.
Air quote rebellion, because really nothing happens. Yeah, it was put down before it ever started.
Yeah, in the second book, you hear a lot about you actually get a lot of history on the Blackfire Rebellion.
Yes,
and you actually get, whereas in the World of Ice and Fire, when they mention it, they just kind of give you an overview where they're just like, well, brother, or people chose different sides. But in the Mystery Knight, you get they're serving a guy who fought for the Black Dragon.
Yep.
The Blackfires.
Yeah.
And he's telling why he did. And it's just cool. It's just, you kind of get that perspective.
Well, you get the perspective of people who landed on the Black Dragon side, the losers, right, who lost. Their keeps are not as well stocked. They don't have as much money. The crown has found ways to reward those who were loyal to them.
Right.
And that's really what you get with the Checky Lion. You know, and it's kind of a sad story. His sons go off and die and stuff, and he's just sort of this lonely lord who's left there telling his story. But it's so cool.
Yeah, it's so cool. I cannot recommend a Knight of Seven Kingdoms. So that's all 3 of the Duncan eggs that are currently out. And then I'll go ahead.
Well, I just want last thing on that. If ever, because I know we do the histories here out of a World of Ice and Fire, that can seem dry to some people and very like encyclopedia like.
It kind of is, yeah.
It is. This is not like that. I just want people to understand that's a real story. It has an arc and.
Oh, it is, yeah.
To
be honest, it's my favorite.
But another thing that I think will happen is, it's So you have that, and then you have a World of Ice and Fire. Fire and Blood, I think, is going to be a hybrid,
right?
Version of the two. So.
Yeah, and that's coming out later this year. That's going to be more of like a Targaryen only history. Then there are the novellas.
Yeah.
There's like the Princess and the Queen. There's the Sons of the Dragon, and these are kind of hard to track down, to be completely honest. The one we did for our first Black Council, Sons of the Dragon, is it expands upon Maegor the Cruel and King. Oh God, now I'm forgetting his name. Aenys the First.
Yeah,
and we had talked about that. So the World of Ice and Fire mentions it, but the Sons of the Dragon, it just expands on it, and you get a deeper dive. But to get it, you have to buy this book called the Book of Swords, which is just a culmination of tons of different authors writing, expanding on their own universes, and then there just happens to be one from A Song of Ice and Fire.
Right.
I will tell you that a lot of these things you can actually find just on YouTube, or we found a PDF of it. You can. So if you don't want to buy this other thing, just kind of use Google to your advantage, and actually, things come up pretty quick. We found the full audio version on YouTube of
which one?
The Princess and the Queen.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, we ourselves pretty much I think we got that. We are going to buy everything that we
Absolutely.
use,
Because you bought the
about the Sons of the Dragon. The Book of Swords with the Sons of the Dragon in it. And another note, so you can find those. We can maybe if we can help people find some of that stuff if they need, or if you're super interested, hit us up. We might be able to do something else for you guys. But the wiki itself, it compiles all of that. So the main series, A World of Ice and Fire, the novellas, and the Dunk and Egg series, it combines all of it.
Yep.
Matter of fact, I even think,
and the wiki is really good. Unfortunately, it seems like it just went under construction today or something, and
what the
it
heck?
used to look so good, and we went on it today, and it's like, what?
Hopefully they're still working on it.
Yeah, because it was so great before. But the nice thing about there's good and bad about the wiki. The good thing about the wiki is that it does compile a lot of that stuff, and when it gives you notes, like references, it tells you what chapter
footnotes
it pulled it from. Yeah, it's great. Now it is a summary though, so sometimes you have to then go actually read that chapter to kind of get the full picture of it.
Right. Let me give you an example. Is it okay? Just because I think we've had several people ask.
We've had a lot of people. I've noticed in the past couple of weeks, a lot of people have been asking, "Where do you guys get all this extra stuff at?" So,
and we're more of explainers. We like to explain stuff, give you an overview, make sure it makes sense. We're not trying to impress anybody with our knowledge of the world, but it's a commentary. It's a group. It's all about the community and stuff for us. So,
and Sarah and I are both pretty fine with saying, "I don't know that yet. I'll check into it."
Yeah, absolutely.
There's so much content.
Yeah, and you guys, you have no idea how much your input on the, people who message us. We have messages out the wazoo.
Oh my
Ravens. God. It's crazy, and all that stuff adds to the show. It gets on the show. We try to credit you when you provide a theory or a thought for sure. But for example, today Aegon the Third is our Maester study. So I'll let Sir Matt kind of get prep and get us ready for this, and I'll tell you guys on the wiki page. When I pull up Aegon the Third Targaryen, if you scroll to the very bottom, you'll see the references. Right, here's everything that they used to build the wiki page for Aegon the Third. The first thing is the Hedge Knight.
Yeah.
Okay. First thing, Hedge Knight. Number 2, World of Ice and Fire, Targaryen Kings, Aegon the Second. World of Ice and Fire, Targaryen Kings, Aegon the Third. World of Ice and Fire, Targaryen Kings, Viserys the Second. The Rogue Prince, which we didn't even mention.
That's another novella. Yeah.
Yeah, which has in it, the one that we had just mentioned there.
Right.
Let's see. World of Ice and Fire, World of Ice and Fire. Game of Thrones Appendix. Okay. Princess and the Queen. So spake Martin, which is something we're trying to track down, which is all of his different things that he spoke and stuff that he has his commentary on the book series himself. And then it gets into a Game of Thrones chapter 23, A Feast of Crows chapter 45.
Yeah, because these guys will be mentioned.
Yes.
And there's one, and I had actually gotten to it the other day, where and it's a where is it? It's down here on the page. It must be A Storm of Swords. It's like after King Joffrey Baratheon had ended his betrothal to Sansa Stark, become engaged to Marjorie, he informed Sansa that he can sleep with whoever he wants to. He tells her that one of the Aegons had a lot of whores, but fails to remember which Aegon it was. He says it's Aegon III, which is actually incorrect.
Right.
And I think Tyrion like
Corrects him.
correct, or he doesn't correct him, but he has an inner monologue. About I can't remember if it's the Sansa chapter, or I think it's actually Tyrion's wedding, but whose point of view it is. But regardless, so stuff like that too. It references because there will be one lines about them in the main books and stuff like that. So you really kind of have to pull from all over the place. There's other companion books as well. Sir Ezra, you bought a while back the maps of Ice, Atlas of Ice and Fire, which is really cool.
The Atlas of Ice and Fire, which gives you. I mean, for me, I'm a visual person sometimes as well, and I need to see it, and I need to see where it's at and make connections to people. And I'll you understand the directions too in which the battles take place and where they have to traverse, and it's good to kind of get that.
There's the app of Ice and Fire, which is really
oh my god,
good.
I almost forgot about that. Yeah, the official World of Ice and Fire, Song of Ice and Fire app.
It's
which
free.
Is
free. You can buy something that unlocks a lot of
it's
everything.
worth buying.
It is actually, it's like $20, but it is almost worth buying.
Is it that much?
I think it is kind of to get everything.
Yeah, I think you can get maybe like each book's worth of spoilers and notes and stuff for like $4.99, and it adds up to like $20. Maybe you're right. Yeah. So, anyways, but there's a lot of stuff, and I mean, it's it's good questions people were asking. Where do you guys get all this stuff? Because we want to go read it ourselves. We love that because what it does is when you read it, and then if we don't read every verbatim line or passage from World of Ice and Fire. So if we miss something, we want you to hit us up and say, "Hey, I thought that was significant. You guys didn't talk about it. Can we talk about it next episode?"
Right.
Absolutely.
That's and then of course there's also the show. Oh, and then the show. Yeah. The extended features on it. So, the show is kind of its own thing,
separate
right?
Thing. Yeah.
We obviously pull from it for theories, speculation, expanded stuff.
Right.
We
look
try
at interpretations.
Interpretations. But in the show, in the extended features, they have characters from the show reading the histories, and sometimes it actually is almost just straight out of like a World of Ice and Fire. But that stuff, if you really listen to it and read it, it is actually much more canon of the books, and they're super cool, and you get like kind of their perspective on some of the histories. For example, we watched the one of Jaime Lannister, and he's reading about the Kingsguard and what all happened and stuff like that. But there are some times I've noticed in those histories they actually kind of contradict the show. And because in the show they may say something is slightly different, and it is actually almost more book oriented, yeah,
for sure.
So there's that as well. There's a lot, but I would say that those are really the main. I would say Dunk and Egg series, World of Ice and Fire, and you're pretty much good to go.
Good. Yeah, you're good. The novellas give you a little extra tidbits of information, but it can be
they're hard to track down.
Yeah, and really it's not as significant.
Right.
The details. I mean, if you're doing theory based stuff in the histories and looking at why, like, the example of who killed Maegor. Right. You know what I mean? You would look at the Sons of the Dragon for a lot more evidence to say as to which one of his wives it could have been, or who could it have been that killed him. Was it just the Iron Throne itself? Or did he kill himself? Type of thing. So if you want to speculate on that type of stuff, that's why Sir Matt and I, go to those novellas.
Yep. So all right. Well, I hope that answers some people's questions, because I just feel like we've gotten like 4 or 5 of those in the past couple of weeks, which is great. And so hopefully that expands on that. So, all right. Well, let's go ahead, Sir Ezra, and dive into our Maester's study. This week we are on Aegon the Third, otherwise known as, I believe he's called Aegon the.
He's called the Unlucky at one point.
Yeah, the Aegon the Unlucky.
Yeah. And something I'll mention here too, we're not going to spend a lot of time on Aegon the Third. I myself did not actually dig into this as well as I would have liked, but it's because we spent so much time on Dance of Dragons, and I'm still on Dance of Dragons in my mind, getting ready for our Patreon exclusive series. Right. So,
and to be fair, Aegon the Third is actually kind of, I guess I would almost call him a placeholder.
Yeah. Not
really a lot kind of happens under his reign. Now his kids, that's a different story.
Sure. Yeah.
For sure. I'm going to be quite blunt, really, I would say the biggest thing that happens under Aegon III, I mean, we're going to dive into it here a little bit more, but I would say the biggest thing that happens under him is the fact that he's known as the Dragon's Bane, because the dragons end.
Yeah.
Under his reign, all the dragons
die,
and it's and he himself is not fond of dragons because if you remember, his mother was eaten by a dragon, right? Like right before his eyes, and that's kind of how.
By Sunfire, right? The dragon Sunfire.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and start reading some of the passage here. This is gonna be kind of a lengthy passage, and I think this will kind of expand on just about everything here.
Okay.
When Aegon the Younger came to the Iron Throne in 131 AC as Aegon III, after the death of his uncle Aegon II, the realm may well have thought that its troubles were done. Aegon III's supporters had defeated the last of Aegon II's host at the Battle of the King's Road and had full control of King's Landing. The Valyrian fleet once more served the Iron Throne, and the Sea Snake would surely help to guide the young king. But these hopes were built on sand, and this period was soon known as the False Dawn. Aegon II had sent men across the narrow sea in search of sellswords, and none knew when or if those would return to avenge their king. In the west, the Red Kraken and his reavers ravished Fair Isle and the western coast, and a terrible hard winter, first declared by the conclave in Old Town in 130 AC on Maiden's Day, had taken a firm grip on the realm and would last for 6 cruel years. Now, I will say, I think this is the first time since Aegon's conquest that we have heard of winter coming.
Yeah, I think so too. Because remember, their seasons are different. You could have a spring or a summer last for 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Yep.
So this was a significant winter, enough so that they mentioned it in a world.
Yeah, this is the. I mean, I would imagine that they've had winters, but this is just the first one I specifically noticed them talking about. Nowhere in the Seven Kingdoms did the winter matter more than in the north, and the fear of such a winter had driven the winter wolves to gather beneath the banner of Lord Roderick Dustin and die fighting for Queen Rhaenyra. But behind them came a greater army of childless and homeless men, unwed men, old men, and younger sons under the banner of Lord Cregan Stark. They had come for war, for adventure and plunder, and for a glorious death to spare their kin beyond the neck one more mouth to feed. Now, you remember, Lord Cregan Stark, we talked about this last week, was marching a big army south while the Dance of Dragons was finishing, and the Dance of Dragons finished before he got south. So he still comes, and he's got this big army.
Yeah.
So the poisoning of King Aegon II had denied them that chance. Lord Stark still marched his army into King's Landing, but to a much different outcome. He had planned to punish Storm's End, Old Town, and Casterly Rock for having supported the king. But Lord Corlys had already sent envoys to the Rock and to Storm's End and Old Town suing for peace. For 6 days, while the court wavered for news of Lord Corlys's successes or failures, and the realm trembled at the thought of more war, Lord Cregan Stark held sway at court, and this came to be known as the Hour of the Wolf. And this is kind of where I want to focus a little bit on, because I think it's just super cool. And one thing, Lord Stark would not be dissuaded. The betrayals and poisoners of King Aegon II must pay the price. To kill a cruel and unjust king in lawful battle was one thing, but foul murder and the use of poison was a betrayal against the very gods who had anointed him. Cregan had 22 men arrested in Aegon III's name, among them Laris Clubfoot and Corlys Velaryon. Cowed, the young Aegon III, who was 11 at the time, agreed to make Lord Stark his hand.
Yep.
Cregan Stark served in the office for a single day, presiding over the trials and executions. Most of the accused took the black. 2 alone chose death: Sir Giles Belgrave of the Kingsguard, who did not wish to outlive his king, and Laris the Clubfoot, the last of the ancient line of House Strong. The day after the executions, Lord Stark resigned his hand. No man ever held the office so briefly, and few left it as gladly. He returned to the north, leaving many of his fierce Northmen behind in the south. Some wed widows in the Riverland, others sold their swords and swore them in service, and a few turned to banditry. But the Hour of the Wolf was done, and it was the time for the regents. So, think about this.
Yeah.
Sir Ezra. We have a Stark march down and find that a king has been slayed.
Yeah.
And he wants justice done.
Yes.
Doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah, it does. It does sound familiar.
Doesn't sound familiar.
But, one thing I will say, something that's different here. So remember, as things are presented to us here, there's always something with Gura. There's always more to this than meets the eye. And I've read theories and things a little bit on this. And why? So yes, Cragen Stark had declared for the blacks. So we talked about the blacks and the greens last week. Now, Aegon the Third technically is Aegon the Younger is a black. Aegon the Third. Aegon the Second before him was a green. So Aegon the Third, as we know, Aegon the Second is poisoned, and that's what Cragen did not like, and so he came down and he wanted to kind of sort this whole bit out, right? So I look at this a couple different ways, and I was going to pose a question. Did he come down? Were they still allied to the blacks as they came down?
Because they kind of take their time.
Queen Rhaenyra was dead.
Right.
So I almost wonder if it was coming down, and on the way down, they say, maybe we support the Greens.
Yeah.
And let's just get this over with. People, as you see here, the kingdom was done with fighting. I almost wonder if they didn't kind of want to just end this, and maybe they had secretly supported Aegon the Second, and as they get down there, he's poisoned and killed.
Right.
So two theories here. Maybe he comes down and he's just in his wrath just says that was dishonorable, that he didn't like that, etc., and just says, I'm going to kill these people, and he sits in judgment. They go either to the wall or they're killed or what have you. So there's one theory. He's just mad that they killed maybe a king that he wanted to support. The other idea is that perhaps he was the one who ordered the poisoning.
Yeah.
And he came down to make sure that everyone, fell in line and that no one who knew the secrets could tattle on Lord Stark from the north.
Yeah.
So just a couple thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, right here, although this is from the wiki, although Lord Cragen had been one of the blacks in opposition to Aegon II and the Greens, the vengeful Lord sought justice for the poison king.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also that kind of northern,
and that's what I'm saying. It could be it could be that he was still loyal to the blacks, but just thought that was a dishonorable thing to do. But I always try to look at it from I'm Sir Ezra the Watchful, man. I'm trying to look for different angles.
Reader between the lines.
And just there's another angle there. So I kind of tend to believe because we always think good of the Starks, and we always think, it's the honorable, good thing to do. So.
Yeah. So, okay. So then this is where basically not a lot really happens with Aegon III after this, other than that he has... how many hands of the king does he have, and regents does he have here? Because he just keeps firing them, or people die of old age. I mean, the regents of King Aegon III. Lady Jane Eyre, the Maiden of the Vale, died of illness in 134. Lord Corlys Velaryon died of old age in 132. Winter fever. Winter's going on here, so a lot of people die. This kind of reminds me actually of, kind of reference it again, the Sworn Sword, where when you read Dunk and Egg, the Hedge Knight, the first one, you're like, wow, there's a lot of Targaryens alive, and then spring sickness comes, and the next thing you know, a lot of these people have kind of been weeded out and killed.
Well, and I think one of the things too, if you look at the wiki too, it to summarize it just a bit more for us, all these different regents, because he was young. What was he, 11 years old when he takes the throne? And when he comes of age, he marries his cousin. He marries Aegon II's daughter, so his cousin, and to kind of heal the black and green, strife, he marries a green for his first marriage. But all those regents, there's political schemes, plots, assassinations. Within a period of 5 years, they fight one another, and basically, he has someone. His only companion in these first 5 years was, I don't know, Pale Hair. Is it Gaemon Pale Hair, I think. So a former pretender to the throne, and now Aegon's servant friend, and so on. So, he didn't really have anyone, and that's not a good. When I say friend, it was more of because he was younger, just a companion. So it wasn't a good friendship either. So I was also known as his whipping boy and eventually his food taster. So, the regents there. I mean, the first, what do you got? The first seven, the first council of seven.
Lord Banifred Mooton of Maidenpool died of age and illness at 134. Sir Torrin Manderley of White Harbor gave up his place at 132 AC following the death of his father and brother from winter fever. Grand Maester Munkin, the only man to hold the office from 131 to 136. and then that just literally says the rest and kind of lists some, some people there.
Yeah. So he had a lot of different. I mean, because you had the regents who were just in control, and then you have his small council, which is
because he's really young when he comes in, and he actually ends up ruling for quite a bit of time. I think he's 37 when he dies, so he's 11 to 37, so he rules for quite a bit of time.
Yeah, it's like 131 AC to 157 AC.
And he's also kind of pushed around by his regents and things like that, right here. And all this, Aegon III, too young to rule, was but a pawn. He was a melancholy youth and sullen, interested in very little. He always wore black and might go days without speaking a word to anyone. His only companion in these first years was, as you said, Gaiman Pelahar, the boy pretender, now his servant and friend. After Lord Peake came to power, Gaiman Pelahar was given a new role as the king's whipping boy to suffer punishment that could not be meted out against the royal person. Later, Gaiman Pelahar died in attempted poisoning the king and his young, beautiful Queen Daenerys Velaryon. And then it actually takes Aegon quite a bit of time to even sleep with Daenerys, because I think really they don't
affected him. That the poisoning of his friend, didn't it?
Well, that and they don't actually say it. It doesn't seem like, but I think he's like emotionally and mentally scarred. Probably from seeing his mother being eaten by
the Dance of Dragons.
Yeah.
And I'm not so sure how happy his first marriage there was to Ygritte, but he does his duty type of thing, and it is kind of controlled, by others. So yeah.
So then, I'll skip ahead here a little bit. It was a broken reign that followed. So this is when Aegon's actually, Aegon is king. I'll go back here for a second. The time of the regency finally ended on the 16th name day of the king, when he entered the small council chamber, dismissed his regents, and relieved his then hand, Lord Manderley, of his office, which we mentioned earlier. It was a broken reign that followed, for Aegon himself was broken. He was melancholy to the end of his days, found pleasure in almost nothing, and locked himself in his chamber to brood for days on end. He likewise came to dislike being touched, even by the hand of his beautiful queen. Even after she had flowered, he was long in calling her to his bed. Ultimately, their marriage was blessed with 2 sons and 3 daughters. The eldest, Darren, was named the Prince of Dragonstone and heir apparent. Then he strove to give the realm peace and plenty in the wake of the dance. Aegon III proved unwilling to court his own people or his lords. He might have been a very different reign were it not for the one flaw in him, his coldness when it came to those he ruled. His brother, Prince Viserys, whom in his last years served as his hand, had the gift of charm, but he himself grew stern after his wife abandoned him and their children for her native lists. Yet together, Aegon and Viserys ably dealt with the remaining turmoil in the realm. Then it goes on kind of to a minor incident.
Right. Yeah. That's not important.
Yeah, and then that's kind of the end of the chapter, really. I mean, there were 4 dragons still living at the start of his reign: Silverwing, Mourning, Sheep Stealer, and the Cannibal. Yet Aegon III will always be remembered as the Dragonsbane, for the last Targaryen dragon died during the reign in 153 AC. The reign of the Broken King, also known as Aegon the Unlucky, ended with the king's death at 36 years of age from consumption. Many of his subjects thought him far older, for his boyhood was cut too short. The melancholy king is not remembered fondly, and his legacy would pale before that of his sons. So it's interesting because you have
Jaehaerys.
You have Jaehaerys, and it's just the way that it's kind of written.
Yeah.
You have King Jaehaerys, who is a king for...
The old king.
He's a king forever. He's like 50 years. And it's another short chapter. I'm sure tons of things happened.
In those 55 years he was king,
in those 55 years. And this may come down to say, Gur just being like, let's just leave it open-ended because I want to fill stuff in later.
Yeah, and it also, you do need times too, I think, where it's like, my gosh, I mean, you look at all the different kings here. If all of them have like some epic, you need times of peace and you need times of war, right, and things like that to just the way, it's actually the way and ebb and flow of the world, really.
Right, yeah.
And he tries to really reflect what's happening.
And if you look at our world, we have plenty of placeholder leaders. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like for example, you just look at. I can reference United States presidents. I mean, Gerald Ford, kind of a placeholder. He pardoned Richard Nixon, and then like, what did he do? Not a whole lot. Like,
Okay.
It just happens, you know. Like,
Yeah.
Just happens, you know. You just kind of have placeholder guys, and that, you know, it's okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So, but as we'll get into next week, you can start getting to Darren the First.
Yeah.
And then Baelor the First, and
Yeah.
things start heating up. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Some cool, interesting things happen there, for sure. So, okay, that was the Maester study, a little shorter this week. And again, one more plug for Dance of Dragons. In July, Sir Matt and I will be going through that in depth with the novella, The Princess and the Queen. So stay tuned for that. If you wanted more on that, we will have that for you this coming July. All right. Okay, let's dive into the reread.
Last week we did chapter 16, Eddard, where Arya and Joffrey tell King Robert very different stories concerning their fight near the Trident. When Sansa claims she does not remember, Queen Cersei demands the death of the direwolf. With Nymeria gone, Lady is sentenced to death instead. So following up, this week we're back to Bran. Chapter 17. While in his coma, Bran dreams of falling and of a crow teaching him to fly. He then wakes to find himself crippled and decides to name his direwolf Summer.
Yeah.
This week there's not really thirds or parts. It's all kind of, it's for starters, it's a shorter chapter. I think it's a handful of pages, and it's really one event. Well, I guess you could argue it's two events. It's the dream, and then he wakes up, and it's like a paragraph.
Yeah.
But it's we're gonna go down some deep rabbit holes here. Sir Ezra's
get ready.
Yeah,
get ready, guys.
Get ready.
Because we talked about it in Follow Up Friday, the Three-Eyed Crow, and I told you I'd do some more digging and some research, and I'm not done with that. I'm never done.
This reference is my favorite character, Bloodraven.
Bloodraven, a lot will be referenced here. So we're going to talk more about it. I did some digging on warging, green dreams, green sight, skin changers, and all that good stuff. So I think I'll kind of talk about that. Maybe towards the end of the chapter, we can talk just basically what happens here, the bare bones of it, and then get into the rabbit holes.
Let's just kind of get into that first. So I just have a couple of lines here. So basically, Bran, it seemed as though he had been falling for years. Fly, a voice whispered in the darkness, but Bran did not know how to fly, so all he could do was fall. And Bran is kind of having some visions, remembering some things, seeing some things, which is interesting here. Just some lines I have kind of pulled from this chapter. Even your dreams, you could not fall forever. He would wake up the instant before he hit the ground, he knew. You always wake up the instant before you hit the ground. And if you don't, the voice asked. And then some other things here. I'll wake up when I hit the ground, Bran told the bird, who he now realizes the voice is a bird. You'll die when you hit the ground, the crow said. It went back to eating corn. Some other ones here. You have wings, Bran pointed out. Maybe you do. Bran felt along his shoulders, groping for feathers. The crow took to the air, cawing. Not that it shrieked at him. Forget that. You do not need it now. Put it aside. Put it away. It landed on Bran's shoulder and pecked at him. The shining golden face was gone.
Yeah, and so do you have more? Or
I do. Yeah, just a couple other lines I picked out of here.
Cool.
Every flight begins with a fall. The crow said, "Look down. I'm afraid. Look down." Bran looked down and felt his insides turn to water. The ground was rushing up at him now. The whole world was spread out below him, a tapestry of white, brown, and green. He could see everything so clearly for a moment that he forgot to be afraid. He could see the whole realm and everyone in it. And this is where I think you get to the real meat and potatoes of the chapter. Where it talks about he sees Winterfell, he sees his brother Robb, he sees Hodor. He looks east, he sees a galley racing across the waters of the Bight. He sees his mother sitting alone in a cabin looking at a bloodstained knife on the table in front of her. And so he's kind of seeing things so far, Sir Ezra, that are happening currently or have just happened.
Yep.
The way the chapters are told, it's
around about the same time.
Everything's about the same time. But then when we get to what I think is kind of the first, the first kind of future vision here.
Yeah. Yep.
So here we go. He looked south and saw the green rush of the trident. He saw his father pleading with the king, his face etched with grief. He saw Sansa crying herself to sleep at night, and then he saw Arya watching in silence and holding her secrets hard in her heart. There were shadows all around them. One shadow was dark as ash, with the terrible face of a hound. Another was armored like the sun, golden and beautiful. Over them both loomed a giant in armor made of stone. But when he opened his visor, there was nothing inside but darkness and thick black blood. Then goes on to say, he lifted his eyes and saw clear across the narrow sea for the free cities, the green Dothraki Sea and beyond, to face Dothrak, under its mountains to the fabled land of the Jade Sea, a Shai by the shadow, where dragons stirred beneath the sunrise. Then he looks north and he sees Jon's face becoming more pale and hard.
Yep.
North and north he looked to the curtain of light at the end of the world, and then beyond that curtain he looked deep into the heart of winter, and then he cried out, afraid, and the heat of his tears burned on his cheeks. Now you know, the crow whispered as it sat on his shoulder. Now you know why you must live. Why, Bran said, not understanding. Falling, because winter is coming. Then he kind of goes back to kind of the conversation he has with his dad. Can a man still be brave if he's afraid?
Yep.
That's the only time he can be brave. Then Bran essentially just wakes up, touches his forehead, and it still kind of burns.
Right.
And then Robb rushes into the room, and he decides to name the direwolf Summer.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
So the last part, I think if we could just get that away, and then we can kind of go back to everything else, because the last part's, I guess, the only other part.
Yeah, he just names him Summer. He wakes up and...
Yeah, but why does he name him Summer?
Well, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, okay.
Because so Sir Matt pulled out a bunch of interesting quotes and neat stuff, neat lines from the chapter. I very briefly want to just rehash all that real quick.
Go right ahead.
So the idea here is that Bran is falling. Now, there's one line I pull out of this, and I only need one line. Okay, it says, "It seemed as though he had been falling for years."
Yeah.
All right. Talk about a rabbit hole. He's falling for years.
Right.
He's falling through time. He's falling into he's in the void almost of things. So he's having his own dream, perhaps before this, and this is actually this dream. He doesn't seem to be completely. His dream is different than any dream he's had before. And I'll give you this too. It's not necessarily. Well, I won't say that yet. We'll save it for the end. But anyways, so as he's falling, a bird appears to him. First, it's a voice. Then it turns into he realizes it's a bird. Then he realizes it's a crow. Right. Then he realizes it's a crow with 3 eyes, had a third eye looking at him. And the whole time, this crow is just trying to teach him to fly. It's trying to show him, he sees things as he's falling through what I will say is time, and he sees backwards. He has a memory. He sees, and he hears a voice say, "The things I do for love."
Right.
Jaime Lannister. Mm-hmm. And the crow gets in his face and flaps his wing. No, ignore that. Come back to focus here where I need you to focus. So you can see that he doesn't really have free will to go where he wants to go in this dream. He's being guided by this 3-eyed crow. Uh-huh.
No.
Oh, what else? Something else?
Yeah, something else just clicked.
Get in the mic there. Say it. What you got? What's up?
Well, don't you think it's interesting that all of the Stark children are persuaded by different entities or whatever to kind of give up their old life, and you have to start embracing this new one?
Okay, yeah.
I mean, Bran with 3-eyed crow / Raven in the show.
Yeah.
Sansa with Cersei and Littlefinger. No, it's time you learn how to play the Game of Thrones.
Right.
Arya with Jack and Jahar. No, you're no longer Arya Stark of Winterfell.
Right.
You're no one.
Yep.
Even Robb with Catelyn. Nope. You're a lord now. You're no longer a little boy.
Yep.
And then Rickon, we don't really know, but
right. And then Jon himself, though.
Oh, absolutely. Give up the boy, Jon Snow.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. Good point. Yeah, they're all kind of forced to get out of their comfort zone and to go, to new horizons. Mm-hmm. Right. So, as he's falling and this crow is speaking to him, he's falling down below. He encourages him to look down, and he's surrounded by this gray mist, but he knows that he's thousands of miles above the earth, right? Looks down and he sees skulls. He sees the bones of what it actually references. I just didn't find it, but like dreamers, other dreamers, who had fallen to their deaths, essentially. And there's these great big spikes or whatever. And so that's a motivator to say, time to fly, right? And he keeps encouraging him to fly. Before he actually does fly, as Sir Matt has just said, he sees things in the present. He just saw something in the past, but he was told not to look at that.
Right.
But he is allowed to look at things in the present.
Right.
And he is even allowed to look a little forward into the future. And that does kind of parallel what Brendan Rivers later on will tell him, which is, you can learn from the past, but you can't change it. And plus, I think I have a theory on why he wasn't allowed to look at the Lannisters, doing their business and what caused him to fall. I have a big theory on that. But so he eventually, they talk about different types of wings, what he needs to do. And he, encourages him. And eventually Bran does fly. He takes flight. It's better than anything he's ever felt. And he's flying. At that point, then the crow, he actually fed the crow corn at one point, and the crow is on his shoulder. And then it lifts off once he's flying and gets in his face, flaps his wings, and gets into his forehead and starts pecking a third eye into his, or where a third eye would be, into his forehead. And I think you'd said when he wakes up, there's that burning sensation there, right? Okay. Now time for the rabbit holes.
Oh, here we go.
Okay. There's just, I guess the first one I'll start with is why was he not supposed to look at the Lannister, connection? Why was it okay to see where all of his family was and all the strife and woe and things that was happening there? Also, one thing we didn't mention, when he sees where his mom, his dad, his siblings are all at, then he looks north, and when he looks north, I don't know if you have it in front of you, but the tear that kind of comes over him, right? It's right before he says winter is coming.
Yeah, finally he looked north when he saw the wall shining like a blue crystal and his bastard brother Jon sleeping alone in his cold bed, his skin growing pale and hard as the memory of all the warmth fled from him. And he looked past the wall, past endless forest cloaked in snow, past the frozen shore and the great blue-white rivers of ice and the dead plains where nothing grew or lived. North and north and north he looked, to the curtain of light at the end of the world, and then beyond that curtain. He looked deep into the heart of winter, and then he cried out, afraid, and the heat of his tears burned on his cheeks. Yeah,
and I think one of the things, that he looked beyond the curtain. You know what I mean? And I thought that was interesting, that he sees something that's terrible, absolutely terrible. You would guess, right? Is that you think that's what he saw? I mean, he saw the great other, perhaps, or something.
So not even the White Walkers, the great other, like their god or the god, or whatever.
Because it looks beyond the world, beyond the veil, beyond all of that.
He saw Gur.
He saw Gur. Yeah, exactly. But okay, so I think the crow though is persuading him. If he dwells on what happened to him, what caused him to be a cripple, right? Then that is going to hinder him and keep him to the ground. He won't be able to take flight if that's all he looks at and sees is the past and dwells on what. So this is kind of a good thing, right? I mean, the crow's in that regard trying to say, look at what else is happening and focus on that. Because if you just focus on the woe is me, here I am, and he learns how that happens, it could consume him. He could start to think about plotting something against the Lannisters and all this stuff, but he has a greater calling. Right. So I kind of think that's, would you agree? Or
no, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And so he's, when he looks and he finally sees north beyond north beyond north, and he sees this enemy or whatever, the crow says to him, this is why you need to live, because winter is coming. Now, what does that mean, though, Sir Matt? Does that mean that he needs to live to face this thing that's coming, or to serve this thing that's coming? What is the crow trying to say there? Winter is coming has always been like sort of a, I think when the Starks say it, it's be ready, be prepared because winter is coming. Does that mean be prepared to defend yourself because winter is coming, or be prepared because winter is coming and we need to be ready to join forces with winter? You know what I'm saying? They leave it kind of, I think
they do. No, you're right. They do. Yeah. And that's the thing is we had mentioned this the other day, where what if winter is coming means like, winter is coming. Like, it's a rally cry. It's a,
Right. Yeah. So, anyways, he's told to fly. What do you think about the bones of the dreamers who were underneath him as he was falling?
Other people maybe weren't strong enough to handle it. Maybe that Blood Raven had reached out, or the three-eyed crow. We should say the three-eyed crow, because maybe the three-eyed crow. Again, this is where we get into it. The three-eyed crow, I think, is more of like an entity, like a god or an aspect of a god. And it just happened to get Bloodraven when he was there. So I believe that there was clearly probably one before him, maybe someone else. And then it pulled Bloodraven in because it realized, Bloodraven is someone who is strong enough, Brendan Rivers, is strong enough to handle the mantle now. And now, maybe Bloodraven reached out to Rhaegar.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, it's possible. I don't know. And then he sees Bran and he realizes Bran is strong enough because we know Bran later on is a warg, has green dreams, and all. There's a big separation of warging and green dreams and shapeshifters.
Right. And so let's get into that for a little bit, because the World of Ice and Fire official app actually says this: Brendan Rivers awaits the birth of Bran Stark, another green seer, who will be needed in a time when the fate of the world and all who live in it are in danger. That's pulled from the World of Ice and Fire app, so it's not the wiki or anything else like that. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Let's see some more stuff about skin changers. So let's go down here for a little bit. I have a doc that I'm kind of using here that I created. So we have the difference between skin changers, wargs, and opening your third eye. Okay, so this dream was about Bran opening his third eye. I think before he falls and before he is, hurt and crippled, I think all of the Stark children are wargs. And I think they all they come to it later. Jon, it takes a while, and I think they say Sansa never had really the chance because Lady was, killed to have wolf dreams, right? But Arya clearly has them. Robb does too. Even Catelyn notices that, we should keep our direwolves close to us. And
Ned does too. Ned realizes what a terrible mistake he made by killing Lady later.
Yeah. And it's very important that they're there. Now, so let's start with wargs first, because Bran is a warg before he is anything else. He's born that way, I think. So this is a good place to start. But let's see here. So Bran enters his dreams using... where's the bit about not all wargs are... hold on one second here, guys. Here we go. Other beasts. Okay, all wargs are skin changers, but not all skin changers are wargs. Okay, so skin changers...
Another thing here real quick.
Yeah.
This is from the wiki. It is unknown if skin changers are synonymous with or different from shape changers.
Yeah.
Just so...
There's another thing. Yeah. Yes. So now... So let's get between the warg and a skin changer. Let's talk about those first. Warging is... That's specific to wolves. Wolves, and then even more so, dire wolves. And so when you warg, you're warging into, you're kind of sharing, you have wolf dreams, or you're connected to your wolf. And they say, wolves and women wed for life. Hagen actually is someone who, I think he's a wildling who is teaching, what's his name? It's in one of the prologues. He's teaching the other skin changer who's with with Mance and his folks there. He's teaching a skin changer about the different abominations that skin changers can't get into, and just basically what a skin changer is and what a warg is. And he talks about wolves and people who are wargs. They have a real close, like, once you're connected with that wolf or that dire wolf, it's for life. So really, the Stark children, once they took their pup, they're connected. That is their pup. And we see the evidence of that throughout the whole series, right away in Game of Thrones. Like, they're connected, they listen well, etc., and they respond to the commands. They have a bond, right? That bond is for life. Jojen, when he shows up with Bran later, actually, he is not a warg.
Right.
He is, I believe... They say that he has green dreams, but I believe he's a green seer in a sense. Maybe not, but he has green dreams. but he can sense wargs and skin changers and other green seers.
Right. Because remember, Bran doesn't he wargs into summer, but then he also can skin change into Hodor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's your difference, all right? The warging is specific to your wolf, right? A skin changer, you can hop into, and you're warned not to do this, but you can hop into cats, deer, bears, badgers, beavers, birds. They say birds are the worst of all because men were not meant to fly.
Right.
And Hagen actually at one point is talking about how, when you do warg into a bird, he's seen men later on just like staring at this when they're not in the skin of their birds, staring at the sky, longing. They feel lost and empty, right? Another big difference between wargs and skin changers. Skin changers are affected by the animals that they would warg into. If you warg into a deer, it's prey, and you will become more timid. Warg into a bear, you might become more aggressive and agitated and things like that. Okay, warg into just different animals, right? Your wolf very much shares a bond with you.
Yeah,
it's a much more mutual. Like you're almost forcing yourself into that skin of an animal, and you're with a wolf, it's a more mutual bond. Okay, so there's your skin changer warg, I guess, differentiation there. So, and again, all wargs are skin changers, but not all skin changers are wargs. So just to kind of make that clear.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you got?
Can I pose a question?
Sure.
Here. Sorry, I thought of this on here. I don't want to derail you. So if
that's fine.
If you're okay. So question, Sir Ezra.
Yeah.
So we know Bran skin changes obviously into Hodor, and then once he becomes the three-eyed raven, he puts himself into birds, and he's seeing the army of the dead. But that could then once you're the three-eyed crow / raven in the show, then who knows what your powers are? Is it like amplified? So is it possible that Bran is the third head of the dragon? Because there's two dragons, and we assume maybe Daenerys is on Drogon, and Jon is, what's the other one that Jon would be riding?
One of her other dragons.
That's like whatever the other dragon is.
That's left.
And then Bran could put himself into Valerian, the one that was taken. Maybe he then takes it from the Night King.
Oh, I see. You mean he would take its skin?
He would shift
into it.
He would shift into the ice dragon or I guess we shouldn't say it's the ice dragon because it's the Valerian, the one that the Night King took.
Yeah. Okay.
He turns into a white, I believe. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's an interesting thought. Yeah, I never thought about it like that. I was even going to go a step further when you mentioned that he could be the third head of the dragon. Something interesting that comes up. Let's see if I can find it real quick. Jojen actually has that dream, right? And it was a crow. So this is I forget which chapter it is, but it was a green dream. So I knew it was true. A crow was trying to peck through the chains, but the stone was too hard, and the beak could not chip through them. And then, I think Bran asked, did the crow have three eyes? Jojen nodded. Let's see. It doesn't. I don't have actually what he said. What he was that he dreamed, but he dreamed that there was a winged like serpent creature that was chained in Winterfell, and it was like a winged wolf. I think.
Rhaegal is the other dragon.
Okay,
Daenerys is the other dragon. Sorry, yeah.
Gotcha. So anyways, I thought that was kind of neat, and that he actually goes there because of his green dream has something to do with like a winged creature down in the crypts, which Summer and Shaggy Dog actually kind of encounter. Bran sees it through their eyes. So there's that. Now back to just real quick back to skin changers and wargs. I have a neat little number here for you. I think it's said by, I'm not sure exactly who says it, but 1 in 1,000 are born skin changers. One in 1,000, right? And 1 out of those 1,000 skin changers are green seers. And green seers, I think Sir Matt and I had talked a lot about it with the Children of the Forest. who are the green seers? Like what is with the green seers? How do they choose this one or that one? And in a dance with dragons, I think it's Bran 3. I think this is Brendan Rivers is talking about the other children who are therein tied to the werewoods. He says, those you call the children of the forest have eyes as gold as the sun. But once in a great while, one is born amongst them with eyes as red as blood, or green as the moss on a tree. Or as green as the moss on a tree in the heart of the forest. By these signs do the gods mark those that have been chosen to receive the gift. The chosen ones are not robust, and their quick years upon this earth are few, for every song must have its balance. But once inside the wood, they linger long indeed. And so the werewood that we see that's kind of preserving Brendan Rivers, is also, if you look at that chapter, preserving other green seers who are children born. And their children, their green seers were marked by red and green, moss green eyes. So think about it for a second. What color were Brendan Rivers' eyes? Red. Okay, so he's kind of this owl.
Well, his eye.
Yeah. Yeah, right? He's kind of albino, right? Has that red eye.
All right. Like Ghost.
Like Ghost, yes. Now, Jojen, actually, who kind of says that he's not really a green seer. Like, you think he tries to say he has green dreams, but he kind of will say that he doesn't, I think I don't have it right in front of me. I don't think he includes himself as a green seer, right? But he senses skin changers. He has moss green eyes. He's small and sickly, and he has what we call green sight. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to me, he would be something like Brendan Rivers, but born much later, right? And he has the gift, I would say.
And I'll say, as this is the first dream chapter we've gotten to. There's a clear difference, because if you just were to pick any of the dream chapters from people, you could be like, well, it seems like all these characters, like Jaime has a chapter where he's dreaming, Ned has a chapter where he's dreaming, and a lot of them dream obviously about events and things that are going on, but it's pretty clear to see the difference in what Bran sees, where Bran is seeing things that are happening around the world, things that are going to come, and stuff like that.
Okay, so let's get into even more of that then.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we have a warg who can shift into wolves, right? And that's all it can really do. That's the Stark children. And then you have skin changers, which we have a lot of those with the wildlings. They can shift into different skins. They can wear the skins of bears, people. There's abominations. So let me quickly talk about the abominations. For skin changers. To eat to eat human meat was an abomination. To mate as a wolf with a wolf was an abomination. And to seize the skin of another man was the worst abomination of all. So, Bran, who's a warg, is also a skin changer, because all wargs are skin changers, and he's done 2 of those 3 abominations, maybe unknowingly, but he's done them.
He calms in A Storm of Swords. There's the chapters where Bran is going north of the wall, Jon is coming south with Ygritte and just the party, and they're gonna attack, air quotes, Castle Black. And Bran and Jojen Reed, and they're up in the tower, right? And there's a storm going, and Hodor's making all kinds of noise, and they're trying to silence him, because Bran and their group see like, oh, there's people down there, we don't want them to see them, and so Bran shifts into Hodor for a second, and it calms him down, and Jojen's like, what'd you just do? Yeah. And also Jojen during A Storm of Swords, I'm in A Storm of Swords right now, so that's it's just really fresh in my mind. Tells Bran, you can't eat, like eating as
your wolf
summer doesn't feed you.
Yes.
And because Bran is a cripple, he's like Bran wants to just be summer.
Yeah.
Because that way he can run and do things.
Well, yeah, I'm getting to that.
Yeah, okay, I'm just saying, yeah.
No, that's a real, I'm glad you brought that up, because I don't want to forget that. Do not forget that. He wants to be summer. We'll get back to that. So we've talked about the wargs and skin changers and their abominations, right? And then now we've talked about green seers a little bit, okay? And that, they have these characteristics. The eyes look different, sickly, and whatnot. They have a gift, and there's not very many of them, okay? Right. So there are actually more skin changers than there are wargs, and there's even less green seers out of all of that. So we're kind of like I guess if you looked at it as a hierarchy, at the base of your pyramid, you have your skin changers. Then above that, you've got wargs, and then above that, you've got green seers. And I would say at the top of that pyramid, you have your third eye, right? You've got the crow's eye, this opening of your third eye type
But
of
are
thing.
but you can hold on real quick.
That's what
real quick question about the green seers. Is the green dreams? Is you can have green dreams, but I don't think have any of the other powers that go along with it.
So you're saying a green seer can have a green dream?
I'm saying some people also just have green dreams.
Some people have dragon dreams, and they have wolf dreams.
Yeah.
So those are different types of dreams. And then you have green dreams, which are dreams that you see in the future. So Jojen has green dreams, but does not believe he is a green seer.
Right.
Okay.
It's confusing, guys.
So there's the difference,
just so
right?
You know, yeah.
So those are the dreams. Put the dreams on a separate,
they're their own thing.
Separate.
Because a lot of the Targaryens have
dreams. Right.
Yeah.
And they're more focused on a specific, like the wolf dream is focused on you're dreaming through your wolf and you're kind of a warg, right? Dragon riders also have a special bond with their dragons,
right?
And so not everybody's a dragon rider. So there's something in your magic and the blood magic, between you and that beast and that family blood. And so they have dragon dreams. Green dreams, I think, skin changers and these people who are more magical like this, dragon or green dreams are just separate. They're different things. Now, for example, in Dunk and Egg, on the way to the tourney at Ashford Meadow, Egg's older brother has green dreams. He sees things that he knows they will happen. He knows that they will become true. Jojen, same thing. He has seen the day that he will die. He has dreams of the future.
Right.
Okay. Opening your third eye or your third eye I believe it has the ability to. You can look everywhere. Jojen says you can see into my heart. You can see through me. You can see into the past. You can see around the world at your own will. You have control of it. The dreams are gifts. They're sent to you, type of thing, versus like being a green seer who has this third eye opened. Right. You can see around the world.
And then, as we know, so the books and the show, different things. But in the books, Bloodraven tells, or Three-Eyed Crow tells Bran, you can look into the past, but you can't change it. Now, obviously, unconfirmed that it's going to happen in the books, but I think based upon the fact that we saw it in the show, again, the events and circumstances could be different, but I think that that's another thing that's definitely going to happen in the books, is that Bran is going to be able to change the past. So it seems like, going off the information we have from the show, is that Bran is even on another level than Bloodraven.
Could be. Yeah, that could be.
And maybe because Bloodraven is just a guy who dabbles in sorcery.
But also, Bran is younger and might make the mistakes. Perhaps it's something where an older, wizened, three-eyed crow, or an older, wizened green seer has made the mistake and has done that and is just telling Bran, you don't do it, you can't do it.
I don't know.
It
think
could be different. It could be that he has the ability to. Like
I think it could be the ability to, maybe because, one, Bran is a Stark in that blood of the First Men, which... actually, Bloodraven might have it because he's a Blackwood. Do the Blackwoods have blood of the First Men in them all the way?
They do.
Yeah, so maybe, possibly.
Yeah.
But Bran is a Stark, and that's like a stronger
line.
And that Bran is a green seer in his own right, and Bloodraven may not have been. And so Bran's,
Yeah. So let's go one more time with those tiers. You've got the bottom of your pyramid. You've got your skin changer. Above that, you've got your warg. Because all wargs are skin changers.
Right.
But not all skin changers are wargs. So that helps you build your pyramid, right? Skin changers at the bottom, wargs, green seers, and at the tippy top, I believe, is opening that third eye. I could be completely wrong about that, but that's just what as I've looked through stuff, that's what I'm seeing. And one thing that Jojen says in A Storm of Swords, he says, he's talking to Bran here, and he says, green seers were more than that. They were wargs as well as you are. And the greatest of them could wear the skins of any beast that flies, swims, or crawls. So again, as you go up that hierarchy, your green seers, if you're a green seer, like Bloodraven, Bran, and maybe Jojen, you can wear skins. Yeah. You can wear skins and you can warg. You can do all of those things as you go up that pyramid, right? Now, not many. Now you look at your green seers, up the upper end of that pyramid. Not all of them, I don't believe, have opened their third eye.
Right.
And I think that's the thing. So let's look at your...
Do you think anyone can open their third eye, or do you think it's only one three-eyed crow? Or raven in the show can do it?
I think.
Do you think it's like? Do you think it's kind of like we were talking about this earlier, like the Sword of the Morning? It's like an established position, like only one person can do it. Now we see that Bloodraven is teaching Bran how to do it, but is it kind of like the Highlander? You know, there can only be one. Like
that maybe, but I think there's the three-eyed crow position that you've talked about, or maybe it's that you have your third. Maybe many people can have their third eye open. Right. And not many, because again, this is very few. You'd have to be a green seer, which is extremely, extremely, extremely rare, you know, and then you would have to have that eye opened. I think Jojen's. No, that's not. Never mind. Yeah, sorry. But anyways, I get what you're saying, but I think you could have more than one person who has their. I think the position of the three-eyed crow is more. Now, this is where I get into the misleading piece. You said that Summer wants Bran to stay with him. And
no, Bran wants to stay as Summer.
Okay, I'll give you another one here then. Summer does want Bran to stay with him.
Okay.
Every time Jojen brings up green dreams and things like that, a low growl comes from Summer. Summer doesn't like all this talk.
Yeah.
Doesn't really necessarily like the idea that Bran is being. I think Bran will be torn between the land of always winter and his direwolf Summer.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's something else going on there. Being a warg is special, and this bond is special, and his wolf is like his spirit animal that looks out for him, type of thing. And so I don't know. Now that he's made that connection, maybe it's just a selfish thing with Summer, but Summer seems to be a little bit leery of Jojen and what he's saying to him. Just saying. That's a couple of things from the book, and I can look up more evidence for that. Now, another thing that's mentioned, we talked about the three-eyed crow. I would say at least 5 times is mentioned, all crows are liars. The crow is a tricksy bird.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And so, keep that in mind when you have a three-eyed crow showing up in your dreams. Showed up in Jojen's dream. So the three-eyed crow showed up there. So remember you asked the question, could there be more than one person with their third eye open? He gives him a green dream that sends him to Bran. But what was happening to Bran, I think, was his third eye was open. I don't know that Jojen had the three-eyed crow pecking on his forehead trying to open up his third eye. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Jojen's never talked about that necessarily. He encourages him to, open that up and to keep kind of going. But I think Jojen is a green seer. Mm-hmm. I think he has all the characteristics of one.
You know who else may be one?
Who?
Is his father, Howland Reed.
Yeah.
Because when Jojen first shows up in the books, he tells Bran that he had a dream, and then Howland Reed immediately sends him north.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, good point. That's actually a good point. And you go back to the Tower of Joy. Maybe there's some foresight there that he had. You know what I'm saying? Good point. Here we go. Jojen. Let's see. A Clash of Kings, Bran 5. You have 3. The crow gave you the third, but you will not open it. He had a slow, soft way of speaking. With 2 eyes, you see my face. With 3, you could see my heart. With 2, you can see that oak tree there. With 3, you could see the acorn that it grew from, and the stump that it will be one day, past and future. With 2, you see no farther than your walls. With 3, you would gaze south to the summer sea and north beyond the wall. So Jojen has had dreams about, he understands what the opening of this third eye will do. And I don't believe Jojen has that ability, but Bran is constantly having this pecking going on, right? Another thing here, the third eye. It allows you to see through things, see far away. You can enter people's dreams, interact with them, which he does with Jon, and actually I think it's Jon who is in a wolf dream with Ghost.
Right.
Okay? Take possession of animals, people, see the past, present, and future. Bran actually fears, though, these dreams. And he actually starts to get kind of like he'll have a dream where the three-eyed crow shows up and is continuously just pecking.
Yep.
Pecking at his eye, trying to get it to open. And it starts to kind of haunt him a little bit. And what does he enjoy more? He enjoys being in summer. Mm-hmm. But he's going north because he calls him a wizard. This three-eyed crow could help me become not crippled anymore.
Right.
Perhaps I won't be crippled, and really that's sort of why, that's his motivation for going at first. So, yeah. But did you have a thought there? I saw you were kind of...
Yeah, but it was a totally different rabbit hole about Howland Reed and.
Oh boy.
Yeah, sorry. It's not worth going down right now.
Okay. So let's see. So in A Clash of Kings, Bran 7, his third eye had finally opened, right? He could reach Summer whenever he wanted, and once he had even touched Ghost and talked to Jon, though maybe he had only dreamed that. So he's still working on his powers, but his third eye had finally opened on his way up to meet the three-eyed crow. Okay, so it has opened, and he is starting to kind of use it and figure it out. All right. Let's see. Some of the things I wanted to get into. We had talked about those skulls and those bones, and we said Euron Greyjoy, we said at one point, could be someone else who was being reached by the three-eyed crow, and make the distinction between the crow being possibly the form that the great other would take in dreams. Maybe it just shows up as the three-eyed crow, perhaps. And he actually, I think he takes we said this last week, didn't we? Or we said this on Friday, that he has the red eye. When we talked about the characteristics of green seers having red eyes or green eyes, right? And so he has a red eye as his new banner, his sigil. It has a couple crows on top of a crown over top of a red eye. And so I think there's been some obsession with him. I think the three-eyed crow has visited him, and it's something that he goes to distant lands. And here's another thing, Sir Matt. Perhaps the three-eyed crow is manipulating multiple people. As you always said, if it is Brendan Rivers just doing what's best for the realm, sending Euron Greyjoy to get these horns, Dragonbinder and stuff.
Euron Greyjoy has one eye, Bloodraven has one eye.
Yep.
Exactly. Maybe he sees himself.
And it's red. It's a red eye, with the two crows above it, and he's got a crown above it. Now, so I think he's gone a little crazy. He might have been someone who, when the three-eyed crow reached out to him, he took off and flew as well, but just never came north to take the position, and he went about it his own way and used his power or the opening of his eye in a different way. And maybe his third eye was never opened, and maybe he's just a green seer.
And for our listeners we have a lot of listeners who are show heavy. Euron Greyjoy in the books, in the show, totally different characters.
Yeah.
There's another brother, Victorian Greyjoy, who is more of that. They kind of pull him and turn him into Euron in the show. They kind of combine these two characters, and that's kind of who it is. Euron in the books, far more interested in magic and old relics and things like that.
Yep. So now let's go back to our friend Brenda Rivers, and when we get in A Dance with Dragons, when we get there, some of the descriptions that are mentioned is that he draws his life from the tree. Leaf is telling them this, right? He did not eat, he did not drink, he slept, he dreamed, he watched. So Leaf is kind of telling them about, Brendan, who was in this tree. And the other green seers who had the gift with the red and the green eyes, the moss green eyes, are attached to werewoods as well. And they're doing the same thing. Their lives are almost prolonged because of the werewood bond that they have there. A couple of the things, though. Let's talk about how maybe this is not the not the best thing. This Summer. I've mentioned last episode on Fall Up Friday that I wasn't so sure that the three-eyed crow is a good thing. I've heard it's a tricksy bird, it's a liar, and all these different things. Maybe it is, though. Maybe it is a good thing, and maybe it is, as we said, Brendan Rivers, who is a kinslayer. Sir Matt and I were talking about this, and he does what's best for the realm. He kills Aenys Blackfire, to basically stop any more Blackfire rebellions from happening. So he takes a hit to his honor so that he can do what's best for the realm. So if siding with the three-eyed crow and the children of the forest, maybe that's a good thing to do. Maybe it's not, but even if it's not, maybe he is doing it for the betterment of the realm, type of thing. So let's see here. Bran 3, A Dance with Dragons. He's a half corpse, half tree. Lord Brendan seemed less a man than some ghastly statue made of twisted wood, old bone, and rotted wool. Now, interesting here, too. In the same chapter, they see spread out around them a bear skull, a wolf skull, and half a dozen human skulls. So this place is kind of a scary looking place when they go into it.
Right.
Why are there human skulls there? Yeah.
Quick question. I just briefly, I was pulling up Euron Greyjoy theories about the crow's eye.
Yeah.
Somebody says, this is on Reddit, so it could be totally false. And I don't remember this. Later in book 4, Euron makes a statement when standing next to a window. When I was a boy, I dreamt that I could fly. Mm-hmm. When I woke, I couldn't.
Yeah, he does say that. Yeah. He same thing with Bran. When Bran wakes, he finds later he gets. I'm actually, just full disclosure here for everyone. When we hit this chapter, and I've been talking about picking up, I had tried, Jon and Tyrion, and just trying to do my read throughs straight on those characters. It was the conversation on Friday that we had about the three-eyed crow and all of this stuff that drove me mad. That made me say,
true, yeah. It
is time for me to just stick to Bran and go straight through Bran. So I've gone through all of Bran's chapters in the Game of Thrones, and I'm working my way through a Clash of Kings. I've got them all marked here, so Matt can see that. I'm marking the ones in A Storm of Swords, and I'm going as fast as I can through Bran. There's only about 7 to 8 chapters of Bran in each book,
right.
So it won't take me long to get through it, to be honest with you. But yeah, good point. Euron Greyjoy had the same, so he dreamed he could fly. So it's one of those things, like he's almost like an unfinished student, and maybe his task was different, and he like Jojen is sent or has an urge to go, on a quest. He's exiled, and so he goes and does his thing, right? Let's see here. One other thing. Oh, I mentioned the human skulls. What do you think about that? Like this weird kind of like look. Is it wildlings? Is it just, are these other people?
I think these are other people that they tried to plug in.
Or is this former three-eyed crows?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying it could be a combination of people.
Yeah.
I don't know though. I think almost as if the three-eyed crow gets absorbed kind of into the tree.
Mm-hmm, maybe.
Is kind of what happens.
Yeah.
And so I think that the skulls are people that may have tried to do it and it didn't work.
Yeah, that could be. It's creepy. Here's another creepy mention from Bran 3: A Dance with Dragons. Never fear the darkness, Bran. The strongest trees are rooted in the dark places of the earth. Darkness will be your cloak, your shield, your mother's milk. Darkness will make you strong. Now that's interesting, isn't it? To hear that, said to him, he's supposed to fly and open his eye and fly above the world, but they're beneath the world. They're underground. They're in a werewood. It's very earthy and things. It's just very strange. Let's see. Let me see one more thing. Okay. I think that's all I kind of had there for like the difference between the skin changers, wargs, and opening your third eye, and green seers. I need to add that in my notes here. Green seers. One thing more that I want to mention. All right. Sorry. Major rabbit hole here. Old Nan, in the next Bran chapter that we have, when he's looking out the window, he's looking at Rickon, playing with Shaggy Dog and those. And I know I'm skipping ahead here, guys.
That's okay.
But old Nan starts to tell him those scary tales that he likes so much. And she speaks on Azor Ahai, being, that he has his 12 companions, his horse, and his dog. And as he wanders and the long night had fallen and, had come to Westeros, the Azor Ahai, this warrior, is going from place to place trying to figure out what to do. Maybe he's not Azor Ahai yet, but he travels eventually to the children of the forest. Mm-hmm. He travels there for aid. And the story doesn't get finished. It gets, and then there a little bit more is told by Old Nan later on, but you never quite, and Bran, I think, knows the end of the story, and we're going to get it. And maybe we have, and I just have missed it. But it's interesting that, like, during that time of need, he would seek out the green seers and these, children of the forest. So although the show has tainted my mind,
right?
It has. It has tainted my mind with them creating the others, which is exactly what they did. Is that not what it's in the
Absolutely.
show? They plunged that dragon glass
into
his
chest. Again, that's something could be totally different in the books.
Okay, so that when you see that, that's what has made, I think, me and other people kind of think like, wait a second, they were the bad guys,
right?
So maybe they did that, as we said, during the Dawn Age and things when they were fighting the First Men, and then they regretted it when the long night came. And then Azor Ahai went to them, and they got their redemption through Azor Ahai. And perhaps that's what they're doing now with Britain and Rivers, but they're just a shade, But clearly they can make poor choices if we go off what the show has taught us, and they're not wholly good, as Gerd doesn't make one thing that's like purely good and purely bad type of thing. So I don't know. So there it is, man. Skin changers, wargs, green seers, opening your third eye, all of that biz as we get our first little bit here with Bran, and I just wanted to kind of talk about it.
No, it's good.
Is it okay?
Yeah, it's good. But there's one thing I want to talk about that's still in the chat. Bran.
Good.
I didn't hit because I wrote down some things here, some theories. As sometimes I'll ramble for a bit,
that's
and then
fine.
Sir Ezra starts I look at him while we're podcasting. He's clicking, he's writing stuff down.
Right.
Same thing.
You were doing
Sir
that
Ezra
right.
was
Just
going on a
saying
tangent, and I came up with a lot of theories, ideas here.
Okay, good.
So one thing we got to mention. So when Bran is looking out, and we kind of talked about this, where he sees most things that are happening, but then he sees some things that are going to happen. We have him say over them both. He's talking about Jaime Lannister, and we believe Jaime Lannister, a knight in golden armor, clearly, and the Hound. Over them both loomed a giant in armor made of stone. Sounds like the Mountain. But when he opened his visor, there was nothing inside but darkness and thick black blood. So we know the Hound loses to Oberyn Martell later, the Red Viper. And in the show, they just flat out call him Sir Gregor. They just don't hide it.
Right,
in the book, there's Sir Robert Strong, but it's
right.
It's totally just the Mountain.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to see. He lifted his eyes and saw clear across the narrow sea to the free cities and the green Dothraki sea and beyond to face Dothrak under. Oh, sorry, my phone turned off there. Under the mountain to the fabled lands of the Jade Sea, to Ashai by the shadow where dragons stirred beneath the sunrise. So we know that there were dragons and apparently still are dragons.
Right, so that's the thing. That's tricky. So, because like the glass candles light when magic is back. Is it magic or is it the return of the dragons? Or, as you just read, was he seeing the dragons currently in the future, or is Ashai by the sea so far away that you see how as the dragons get closer to Westeros, perhaps that magic that it's coming back to this region, maybe it's always going on in Ashai. Well,
I would argue that the White Walkers or the others are magic, and we know they're about and running around. So just because the Red Comet and dragons and things and the candle being lit doesn't mean that there's not magic going on. I mean, clearly Melisandre's performing things. I believe that the candle is lit, but I believe at that time it hasn't people been Beric Dondarrion's been raised a handful of times, clearly through magic. So that's before the candle is lit. So
So my point is that what is it that
we're talking about the dragon glass candle at the Citadel that's supposed to be lit once magic comes back.
Well, kind of, and they're used to communicate and see and talk.
Right.
But my point is that like some magics are, I think, tied to certain, like we said, bloods. Regions,
clearly the blood magic
religions
that Daenerys gets the oh god, what's her name?
The witch,
Magi or whatever.
The witch.
Yeah.
Well, and so there you go. There are people who are still using it, but it's like it's sort of left Westeros. Like there's not a lot of it going on. They think it's just a bunch of hoopla. But at the same time, in Karth, you've got what are they called?
House
the
Thin.
warlocks there who are doing some type of magic or seeing different things or whatnot. And some of it's all tricks. I mean, Melisandre has a lot of tricks and illusions that are not necessarily magic. And there are things she doesn't understand in the flames. And she does have a glamour, right? But so you're right. But they're tied, I think, to gods, to different things. So it's like, what are we trying to tie that glass candle to? I think because it's made of dragon glass and things, that it's something we would tie more towards the dragons. But yeah, you're right. Are those dragons in Ashai right now currently?
Yeah.
That's a great
and
question.
And World of Ice and Fire had mentioned that dragons, when you're talking about Doom of Valyria and stuff like that dragons were there, in Ashai. And Ashai is something that may get explored later. We just don't know. It's like kind of past Essos, right? Like we hear about it. You hear people are from Ashai, but like it's never really fully explored. So also I wrote this down. just while we were talking about it. When you mentioned the Tower of Joy, a thought came to my head.
Yeah.
So in the show, we see the Tower of Joy, and I believe we see 2 scenes of it. Am I correct? We see one where Bran is first learning how to do it, and he sees Ned, and it's like he's seeing a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And he sees a scream, and he sees Ned look up, but that's all we get. And
Right.
then we go back, and we have the battle with Sir Arthur Dayne. So here we go. This is kind of a big kind of theory, thought thing.
okay.
Just as it's all kind of plugging into my mind.
Let it go.
Okay, so Ned runs up, and Bran, goes up along with him and sees. This is, of course, the show. Bran sees Jon being born, the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's Howland Reed doing? Just standing outside looking at dead Arthur Dayne?
Yeah.
So, what if Bran goes back again, now knowing he can reach out and touch people, say things? What if Bran goes back and has a conversation with Howland Reed when Howland Reed's just standing out there? Because why wouldn't Howland Reed run up with Ned to see what's going on?
I see.
Now, of course, this could all be the show, because in the books, Howland Reed could go up, and you have
sure.
tons of other possibilities.
You're talking show here. So
yeah, this is
disclaimer show.
This is
yeah.
show, but could what I'm going with could influence the books.
Sure.
Just saying, if it happens to go the same way, which you can theorize however you want.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, Howland Reed doesn't run up with him.
Mm-hmm.
So what if Bran has a conversation with Howland Reed about because why would Howland Reed know that when Jojen says, "Oh, I have a vision," you need to go right now
to Bran?
Yeah. Do you need to go see Bran now?
I think he actually believes it is. I have to read it again, but I think it's not just to Winterfell. I mean, it is to Winterfell because he has the it's chained in the crypts of Winterfell. But I think it was more specifically Bran.
Yeah.
I
so
think
why specifically would he say you need to go to Bran right now?
Yeah, interesting. That's a really good
point.
point.
I'm just saying it could happen.
Right.
Could happen.
A lot more stuff
this is total, I just thought of this theory, whatever.
Well,
was it also another thing here?
Sure.
And I just thought of this. So Bran has always talked about wanting to be a knight, right? He's always a kid. He's talking about, I want to be a knight. I want to be in the Kingsguard. All of these things. It's total random thought here. What if we were talking about this, right? With Bloodraven. Oh, and then perhaps Bran is a step above him where he can go back, influence things. Because I definitely think the Hodor thing's happening.
Yeah, me too, kind of.
Definitely happening.
I'm kind of hoping it happens.
And I think that even regardless, I think Bran is going to do something where he does influence the past.
Yeah.
So what if Bran is the Knight of the Laughing Tree?
Huh. Yeah.
At the tourney of Harrenhal, where the unknown knight fights in the tournament, and then it leads Rhaegar. Now we think obviously it's Lyanna Stark.
Yeah.
That's the big. That's the big thing. So what if it actually was Bran? It doesn't have to be Lyanna fighting in the tournament. Maybe Lyanna's just off somewhere, and Bran actually fights, and then Rhaegar has to go track him down, and he just leads him to
like Lyanna,
and that happens. Or maybe he has a conversation with Rhaegar.
Yeah.
These are the series of events that needs to happen, because it could be kind of, to pull from comics here, Flashpoint. That's kind of in the DC universe. The Flash kind of realizes he can go back in time, and he jacks everything up. He jacks everything up, and then he kind of has to go back and fix it, kind of like Back to the Future.
Right.
And because once you start messing with time travel, that's usually the events you have to go into. Is like something happens, you kind of have to go back and fix it.
Right. And so that,
and then that's where you get into the theory. A lot of the theories of all the brands are the same people.
Yeah.
All this stuff.
Yep. Yeah, that's a little scary to me, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
because it's like
maybe that is what's happening, and that's why it's taking Gur so long. Because once you dive into time travel, you have to. I mean, you really have to make sure everything lines up. Yeah,
you really do. Yeah. I. Maybe, again, like you said, book and show, very different. We
totally
know that.
Different. Yeah.
But maybe in the show they're going with that idea that you could do this and they're not going to expound upon it or whatever. But
yeah,
maybe in the book he's not. Maybe he would just be able to go back and see
the events,
everything that you can has the wisdom of 1,000 years because he can go back and see the things, but he can't touch those.
See, I don't know though, because
I know though. It's the Hodor thing that has it's again.
Well, it's not just the Hodor thing, but it's the Howland Reed piece because you have to have you have to have the Howland Reed piece in the books, I think. Because you've built it up to where I think Howland Reed is going to be a piece of the puzzle to tell.
Yeah, but
potentially
he
John
could have simply gone up the stairs, because you're talking show. Remember?
Well, kind of. I'm kind of talking both in that what is it going to be Bran that sees it? Could just be Howland Reed that comes and says, here's what happened at the Tower of Joy.
Yeah, it could be Bran, but I don't think it's going to be. I think, like you said, it could be Howland Reed.
Again,
Mance Rayder. Again, people have theories that Mance Rayder is Sir Arthur Dayne and could tell the story too.
Yeah,
so like that's why it is so vastly different.
Yeah.
Right now, if you had not have known, and we hadn't seen in the show the Hodor thing, I don't think we ever would have thought Gur would go back and tamper with time.
Yeah.
And things like that, or have someone go back from our present to influence things in the past. So I'm not so sure he's going to do that. We saw that in the show, and we're like, oh my God, it's epic. Now, maybe there is something like that happens, and it's an accident that could never happen again. And maybe the Three-Eyed Crow, realizes that at that point in the show, the Three-Eyed Crow had passed on, I think,
right,
or was about to, because they're being attacked, and it's because of dire need that happens to save the last Three-Eyed Crow, if you want to call Bran that. He needs to use Hodor, and it's a desperate last. And maybe Bran sees there, you can never do, like, look what this did to one person and changed his life and stuff.
Yeah.
So maybe it's something that you can do, kind of like how Back to the Future. It's like a really contained, like one person has a time machine DeLorean, and they really. Doc's like, destroy this son of a gun at the end of the movie. But then he makes a new one with a train, But it's kind of crazy. You got to be careful with it for sure. So yeah, a lot there for sure.
Just saying, things to think about.
Oh yeah, plenty there to think about. Man, you got me on a tangent there, and I feel like I had other things I was going to say here, but I can't really remember those things. But that's okay.
Well, what do you think is the purpose of Bran becoming the Three-Eyed Crow then?
Huh. That's a really good question. I don't actually know. Like if you can't influence things in the past and stuff, then really you're the overseer of this, knowledge. You're sort of like
you can kind of influence. I think I don't know. You can influence because if Jorah Mormont's crow is being influenced by Bloodraven.
Yeah, you can. I'm saying influencing it in the present, but I'm not so sure that you can influence into the past. Is my thing. I don't know that.
Well, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that could be Bran's role. Is that
well, you kind of theoretically once you start, if you can see the future and you know what's going to happen by influencing the present, you are theoretically influencing the past because at that point you are omniscient and you don't necessarily see things as this is where I currently am. You're seeing everything as.
You mean by affecting the future?
No, by affecting if you can theoretically once you can see the future, like you can clearly see a clear picture of it.
Yeah.
Then I don't see. I think that you have to be able to influence the past because you're talking about multiple timelines kind of going on. Because if you right now you could see everything that was ever going on. Mm-hmm. Why would it only be that you could influence things in your current line? You know what I'm saying?
No, I think if you can see into the past and you can see into the future, all you can change is the present. All you can. The only thing that you have is this. If you look at like this line, present,
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Future and past. Yeah, you can.
But if
the past informs your decisions currently, and your future also informs your decisions currently in this current life that you live. Another thing that I'll say is that I actually think their vision of the future is limited, and I think it's very much it's. I don't know that they have this all-seeing power to see wherever that they want. it seems to me that they're limited to the knowledge inside of their werewoods. I get what Jojen, I just had read where Jojen said you could see that, look at that tree and you could see the acorn which it came from and the stump that it will one day be. That's basically what he said. You could look at that tree in the present, you'll see where it came from and where it will end up one day.
Yeah.
But I think he's limited to the Werewood Network and other green seers who came before him, or other three-eyed crows, whatever you want to call it. I think he's limited to that right there. Because I've read theories where, what's her name, Quaithe,
yeah.
Who could be Shira
Seastar.
They talk like Brendan doesn't have a lot of influence in Essos. Although in Bran's dream here, he does see into Essos.
Yeah, because I think Bran's a little more powerful than.
Yeah, and that could be that could be. But can he just choose what he wants to see anywhere, anytime, anything, and just become a god? That's my thing. If that's the case, if Bran's not limited in any way whatsoever and can't. I mean,
I definitely think he's probably limited, but see, this is the thing. Once you start messing with time, with Ger's doing anyway, because once you can see into the future and you can affect it, by affecting your present.
But do you know that's the whole moral behind Back to the Future?
Right. Is that you shouldn't. It's a
no. Is that like when they look at like Marty McFly, what he does there in the future?
Exactly, yeah.
Hold on, he says that like when he comes back. No one's future is written,
right?
Because things can change daily. Bran can make one change here, and that's my thing is I don't think he can see every ripple effect from every possible scenario. So, and I think they're limited to their whatever god it may be. If you have multiple gods, if you've got R'hllor and the Great Other working together, you've got the priestesses who can see visions in their flames. But not to what degree.
And some of those visions that Melisandre sees
are misinterpreted.
Totally misinterpreted.
Right. In Green Dreams, same type of thing. They're kind of. See, I think it's like this power is given to these people, but the gods truly have that power. Like Dany's the Dreamer, right, who led the Targaryens out of Valyria, saved all of them, and affected everything that was going to happen from there on out. Well, who gave her that dream? Who gave her that vision? Some god. Right. Is it R'hllor? Is it whatever the Valyrian, god was that they're beholden to? Led them out of there. But that's all. That's it. So I think in Ger's world, we were just reading So Spake Ger. And he doesn't really. No one god is going to step down onto Earth, and they can't do that. It's like you had said, pieces on a chessboard. Yeah. Right. We're all like the different pieces in the Seven Kingdoms. They're playing their own chess game. The gods are also playing their chess game, and they can only do so much and give mortals so much power. Otherwise, Bran is a god.
Yeah. It's all just crazy. Because I think that Bloodraven did send the direwolves south beyond the wall. I think it was him that sent them to the Starks and kind of created the whole thing you have
in the present. Yeah.
In the present. Yeah.
Yeah.
What I was saying is that like once you can
you see into
the future, you are theoretically kind of no longer living in like you know what I mean? Like presently, like.
Well, let me ask you this question: if you can see into the future, you see everything. You see the current line of future that you're seeing. Yeah. Then Sir Matt makes one decision. Can you unmake that decision? Is my thing.
I see what you're saying.
I don't think you can unmake it. I think once you make your decision.
Well, see, I think Bran is going to be able to change things in the past,
and that's where I think Ger needs to draw the line.
Yeah, because in the show, and obviously the show of the book could be different, but in the show, Bran says he's like, "Well, I'm just the three-eyed raven. I'm like everything that ever was." So,
yeah.
And I still think that that's probably a similar path that they're going to go down with the aspect of the three-eyed crow.
And no, that's an interesting point because Melisandre and the Red Priest are, with R'hllor, given similar powers to Green Seers, are they not? Mm-hmm. Okay, they're given similar powers, and so what god is who's fighting who here? You know what I'm saying?
Well, Melisandre says in A Storm of Swords. When she is talking to Davos and she goes down to the cell when Davos was killed her and she's going to take the light away and she's talking about, and she says to Davos that she's like, well, it all comes down, you have life, death, fire, ice, R'hllor, and the Great Other.
Yeah.
That's what she says.
That's what she says. And so my thing is, who is Bran working for? Who is giving him those powers? Yeah. Is it R'hllor? If it's not R'hllor in Melisandre's mind, then it would be the Great Other. Remember, I said earlier, she sees in her flames an old pale, she sees Brendan Rivers and she sees a young wolf howling, and she names them as the servants of the Other. She does. She names them such. And so it's like, wow. So you would have the Red Priests and things against.
You and I were talking earlier that R'hllor could actually be the enemy.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, we don't know.
That's the thing. It absolutely could be. And so.
Well, and it's all perspective, which comes out of POV and stuff like that. And something else I found interesting, just kind of as a side note here, I'm just in a Storm of Swords right now, so I'm going to keep referencing it. When Jon it's when he's with Ygritte and they're like hooking up and stuff like that, and he's coming down and they're talking. He's talking about figuring out where he's at just because they're walking.
Yeah.
He looks up at the Ice Dragon, which is a star.
Yeah.
But then they're talking about constellations and how Ygritte and the Free Folk call the same things that Jon sees. The same constellation, but they have different names for them.
Yep.
Like even things like that.
Yeah.
Are and that's they view those as the old gods, right? Like the constellations, they have power, they have gods, and so they have they have different names for different things.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's almost like you have like two gods that are rising as like great gods like R'hllor and the Great Other, and then you've got Mother Royne. And you've got these other ancient, gods, like lesser gods, almost like that Roman and Greek, mythology.
Well, you and I were saying that the gods are playing their own Game of Thrones.
Exactly. Yeah. So, whoo,
guys, some deep rabbit holes here.
Man, we went. Oh my gosh, that's wild. So
anyway, and then in the chapter, Bran names the dire wolf Summer.
Yeah.
Probably because he sees how terrible winter is, and he's like, summer's better.
Yes, and I think my whole piece was driving towards was that Summer, I think, grounds him and keeps pulling him. It's almost like a warg is not the greatest power that you could have or whatever, but it seems like it has better properties and a better relationship, and it's not taking, it's giving. Both are giving to one another. The direwolf to the boy, and the boy to the direwolf.
Right. And
versus,
then all the other kids. Trying to think about warging for them. I think with Rickon tells, there's a chapter later in a Game of Thrones where Bran sees Ned in the crypts of Winterfell, and he's telling Maester Luwin it, and I think Rickon says the same thing. So that's kind of where we get
when they dream that their father died.
They dream that they dream that he was walking around the crypts.
That he's down there. Yeah,
he's down there, and it's because he's just died.
Yeah.
But I believe I believe with Rickon. Because Rickon's never a POV character.
I don't think so, no.
And so through him, we find out he has dreams just through it. Sansa's wolf was killed so early, she doesn't have them. And Robb, we don't ever hear. I don't think we hear that Robb has them, but he's never a POV character. But it's pretty much implied.
It's implied that
he does,
and also that his luck and that things are better with his wolf.
Right.
When his wolf,
it's clearly stated he has some kind of connection.
Yes, a bond.
Yeah. But Bran, Jon, and Arya, I believe we specifically see wolf dreams.
Yeah, you say Bran, Jon, Arya. Yeah, and I would say Rickon, right?
Yeah.
Rickon,
he's just never a POV here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you're right to point it out though, is that like he had something there. It would kind of like, and again, that's why I separated the dreams from being a warg. I think they all are wargs, and so they have their wolf dreams, which is some type of power there, but it's capped in some. It's contained.
And that's something else that I hope maybe is explained at some point. Are all the Starks wargs? Was Ned and everyone wargs?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know.
Why
Is it the presence of the direwolf that you had said that maybe Brendan Rivers sends down to let this power, kind of blossom and take off? That could be.
And
again,
and
the same thing.
And Daenerys gets her dragons. At the same time.
This is gonna be a long episode, but that's fine. It's already long, so
it's super long, and the chapters were kind of short, so it's
perfect.
There are people that think that Theon is gonna Euron or somebody's going to ride a kraken, and that we're gonna see all of these ancestral houses and their sigils come into play.
Exactly, yeah. A character I wanted to bring up was Marwyn the Mage, who's the archmaester at the Citadel. I think he's actually sometimes called the Red, but he basically is the one who travels. He goes to Ashai, he goes to the Ibbenese, consorts with whores and hedge wizards, and goes to the Summer Islands and things like that. He actually, when Sam is taking Gilly to Old Town, and he meets with Marwyn, and they have this big discussion about the others and Sam being Sam the Slayer, right? So he takes off. When he hears that information, he takes off to side with Daenerys and basically go to her aid and try to help her out with her dragons. Plus, there was a whole piece with Aemon, Maester Aemon, telling him that he believed that she could be Azor Ahai, and so then he just like off and goes. But my point with that is that you had said with the direwolves, the proximity of the direwolves to a Stark, would any direwolf next to a Stark and that blood that's in the Starks, would that ignite some magic and some bond? It's the same as with like the dragons, and the glass candles and things that are happening there.
There's huge theories that, and this is again more of a show theory that people are going to potentially tie into the books.
Yeah.
That Ned Stark, because in the show there's like ravens circling above,
Yeah,
and like because he looks down to prey, and people are saying he's warging into these ravens above him as he dies and stuff like that.
You could, like skin changing,
skin changing. Excuse me, in the books, it's an Arya POV chapter, and she's like way down in the crowd, so there's nothing about like the ravens, right? Yeah,
right, yeah, could be. It'd be crazy. It'd be crazy. All right,
could it be glamored?
Yeah. Interesting thing about the glamour I learned today is that Bloodraven at one point, who could have been Maynard Plum during the second Blackfire Rebellion, he's wearing that moonstone. Maynard Plum is wearing that moonstone and has like a glossy, like eye. Literally looks like somebody had replaced his eye or whatever. And he that they believe that was a glamour, like Melisandre was using, except for hers is a red ruby or whatever, and his was a moonstone, just different.
Yeah.
So kind of cool. All right, guys, I think that's let's get out of this a little bit here. Bran was a fun chapter, and there's a lot to speculate there. This will be a jumping point for us, I think. Later we can refer back to this conversation. Hopefully, if I've made any errors or Sir Matt and I've missed something, please send us.
I definitely made some errors.
Oh, I did too. I know I did.
Yeah.
But just send us a raven and let us know, and let's get a good firm foundation going forward.
We prefer a raven and not a crow.
We do prefer ravens here. So definitely do that. I think we've gone over cool connections and everything. Send us those ravens to BTKcast, and we'll read them for Follow-Up Friday. I think real quickly I'll just read this one here. I don't know that we'll discuss it much. Should we save this one since we've gone so long, or should we read this raven for this week? What do you think?
Let me read this here,
because it could be a big dive into a rabbit hole, and I'm worried that
we better save this one for Follow-Up Friday, because this is an R plus L equals J theory.
So Caleb, our good friend Caleb, our humble blacksmith Caleb, actually sent us a raven, and I want him to know we were going to read this today because this was a shorter chapter. Did not foresee, I didn't have a green dream here that we would dive into such a deep discussion on warging and skin changers and all that good stuff. But so I think we're gonna skip this. We've kind of gone a little long. We'll save it for Follow-Up Friday, and we've got quite a few more for Follow-Up Friday too. But this will give us a good rabbit hole to dive down to. So don't worry, Caleb. We'll read it on Friday, and we'll be good to go. So. All right, let's move into Man the Wall here. This episode today was brought to you by Sir David, the Huntsman, and here is his knighting ceremony. David, in the name of the warrior, I charge you to be brave. In the name of the father, I charge you to be just. In the name of the mother, I charge you to defend the young and the innocent. In the name of the maid, I charge you to protect all women. In the name of the smith, I charge you to mend the broken. In the name of the crone, I charge you to seek wisdom. In the name of the stranger, I charge you to face death with sword in hand. Rise, Sir David, the huntsman, may your arrows always find their mark. Yeah. And please point that bow at, I don't know, maybe like Word of the Green Hand. A couple of those other, pretenders out there. So, but yeah, those are knighting ceremonies. If you want to hit us up for some of those, we will gladly knight you, make you a hedge knight. We'll have sworn swords as a tier later on. We're working on other fun tiers for our patrons. We found some cool stuff that we could actually send in our swag bags and things like that for those of you who have taken the Black.
Cool stuff.
Yeah, some really cool stuff. Actually,
Yeah.
Sir Matt found it today or yesterday, and it was showed it to me. So excited about that. But yeah, head on over to patreon.com/bend the knee. There we have the Black Council, which has been kind of popular, where we talked at first about the Sons of the Dragon, which was Aegon's conquest and his two sons, what happened between Aenys and Maegor. And I think this coming July, we are going to talk about the Dance of Dragons, and we're going to get real deep and sweaty into that. So definitely check that out. Also, feel free to join the discussion on facebook.com/bend the knee podcast. We, Sir Matt and I, are working. We're trying to push towards getting around, 200 plus likes on Facebook. I think we'll get there eventually, but
I think we'll get there probably by the end of next month, to be honest.
Yeah, well, we might even if you're a listener and you would like to join the discussion. I know a lot of people send us the emails, but we do have a Facebook page, and once we get that page, we're up to 200 likes. Then we'll feel comfortable kind of creating a group and let people kind of. At first we'll just kind of see how it goes. We might need some people to help manage it and things like that, but we would love to get the Facebook group going. So if you are listening and you haven't liked it before, go like it. That'll show Sir Matt and I that you guys are wanting the group, and we'll get that for you.
Yeah, and Ravens, when it comes to Ravens, we get this asked. Another question we get asked quite a bit is what's the best way to send those? And who will kind of respond. If you send them on Facebook or Instagram, I typically respond to those. If you send us an email or if you're a patron, message those. Sir Ezra usually responds to those. And if you leave us a voicemail, just remember you do have around a 3-minute timer. So
right, yep, exactly. And for voicemails, that number is 614-547-2350. So.
Well, we want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Chapter 18, Catelyn 4.
If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, or leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a week, and remember that winter is